Hey there. Today I'm going to show you how to install and set up fritzing. So if you go to our wiring pattern language, you can scroll all the way up to find the table of contents, and you can scroll down. It should be right at the top to navigating fritzing. Now, this should get you to the installing and setting up fritzing section. Things might change. This is a living document, so they're prone to. But there you can find the download, use this link to download fritzing from our Google Drive. So we're going to go ahead and click this. It should open up fritzing, or sorry, a link. Go ahead and hit download. It's going to take us a second. I promise it is not, there's no virus on this. You can download it safely. And this is going to take a second. Obviously, I already have it downloaded. Once you have downloaded it, you should extract it. You can do that by right-clicking on that document and hitting extract, and you can open up the extracted version. I would recommend going to the 64-bit version. This is specifically for Windows. This doesn't work on Mac. I'm sorry, Emilio. But then this should have quite literally everything that you need. The first thing that I would do, you can make a shortcut just by this. You can hit create shortcut, and it'll make that, and then I would put that somewhere else. The reason why I would do that is because this this running file has to stay with, to my understanding, has to stay within this document. So I would also keep the file somewhere safe, not in downloads. I don't recommend keeping it in downloads like I do. But now you can go ahead and open up fritzing, which is just going to take a second here. Okay, now that it's open, you're going to see something like this. What I want you to do is go ahead and go to breadboard, and then you can scroll out, in and out with your mouse to move it around like I'm moving around right now. You press and hold the scroll wheel. I do highly recommend using an actual mouse, not a trackpad, while using this program. Very similar to CAD in a lot of respects. And then you can see on my right, you have all of these lists of parts. What you're going to find when you first open this up is that you don't have all of these fancy parts. For example, you will not have a falcon like I have. Now I'm going to show you how to do that. So we're going to go back to the wiring pattern language. Actually, let me pull it up here. Yep, we're going to go back to the wiring pattern language. We are going to go to the GitHub repo. If you want to also go ahead and search up 2491 No Mythic GitHub, you should be able to find this repo. So we're going to go ahead and open that up. And in this repo, it is the Fritzing wiring diagram repositories. Here you can also find the download link and the wiring guide, which I've already shown you. And the wiring guide is simply the wiring pattern language. And now we go to, now there should be a couple of different folders. You will find a folder for each year of robots that we're making. So the 2025 off-season swerve diagram, you can open that up and you'll find a swervebase.png. And this is an image. So this is an early version. This should get updated by the time you see this, but this is a wiring diagram for a swerve drive base. This should always be done before the season starts, to the standards that will be done on the season. And then the .fzz is what you would import if you wanted to access that, which I'll show you later. Right now, we want to go into FRC parts. So this is a document that should be consistently updated with all the new FRC parts that 2491 uses. We can go ahead and download this. And the way you want to do that is actually by just going to download raw file content. And that's going to download the FRC parts.fzb. Great. Now we're going to open back up fritzing. You're going to go to parts. You're going to click on any one of these. Right now, core is the one that you should all have. So I'm just going to click on that. Doesn't really matter. And I'm going to go hit import FRC parts.fzb. You can go ahead and click on that. It'll load for a moment. And now you should have all of the FRC parts that No Mythic has ever made. Pretty snazzy. I'll show you how to make some of these in a separate video. But some of these were also not provided by No Mythic. Some of these were provided by another team. I can't remember what. There's stuff for that. But as you can see, you can drag out the Ethernet switch. You can go ahead and right-click to delete. So I would always start with a PDH. Beautiful. So now we're going to dive into a little bit of how to wire in Fritzing, what that looks like, how it looks like, all that good stuff. If at any point you end up not being able to find your thing, you can always go to View and hit Fit in Window. And that'll just take all of the things that are in your scene, and they will fit it into your screen. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to get a battery. So I'm going to pull out the FRC battery, 12 volt, and bam, we have that. Now, as anyone who's done FRC wiring before knows, you can't just hook these up directly. We are going to need a main breaker, 120 amps. So what you're going to want to do, you can see that there are little highlightable things that you can find. These are where you can place a wire. So all you have to do is simply click and drag, and now you have a wire. Let's connect the two ends. Now, obviously, blue is not the right color here. We are going to want red. So we switch to red. Now, also, this is a little bit clunky. A direct wire isn't exactly what you want. We want this to be as clean as possible. So what you can do is you can click in the middle of the wire and drag it down. And you want you want as close to a 90-degree angle. Unfortunately, these don't line up perfectly. I'm sorry, OCD folks, but you can get pretty close. Now, we're going to do the same thing. What we want is to take a power wire, put it through here. Let's move the battery up a little bit. We don't want it to get in the way of any of these ports, so we're also going to move this down. You can move simply just by clicking and dragging. Now, we are going to have to fix this guy. Let's go ahead and do that. Beautiful. Now, something you may notice is that I'm actually skipping over this connector right now. So perhaps let's remove this wire. We don't want this wire here anymore. What you can do is you can click on it. You can either right click and hit delete wire, or you can just hit the delete button on your keyboard. Now, I don't like this rotation. I want this to be rotated. So we can go ahead and hit rotate. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. And now I'm going to duplicate this. This is all by right clicks. And then I want to rotate this one 180 degrees. So you have a nice little clip system going on here. And the way we're going to do this is like so. Now, obviously, in this system, black is going to red, red is going to black. Sorry, there is no realistic way to mirror this, unfortunately. So what we can do is we can just imagine and use our pretend imagination. I know it's unfortunate. Additionally, the other option might be to rotate this the other way, but it doesn't really matter right now. So what we're going to do is I would always recommend starting with the same colors, just so you don't have to keep switching colors. I'm going to move this guy down so we have our nice 90-degree angle. Oh no, that doesn't seem to, actually, yeah, great, beautiful. Let's get this nice, beautiful. Now let's do the same thing here. Pull in our red wire, get a nice 90-degree angle. And now let's do the same thing with the black wire. Obviously it's going to be red. I recommend doing all of your routing before really changing your colors. Now I'm going to change my color to be black. Black. And now I'm going to route this straight here. Now here is a good tip. Obviously, there's not really much that we can do to stop this wire from going over others. Maybe we could thread it through, but in my opinion, I think that would actually be less clean. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to pull it all the way down here. We're going to make a very nice, neat run along the line, along the wire that it shares. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. I will say these wires get really hard to maneuver sometimes, but we do the best that we can. Never try and run over another component like this, especially if there's text or important things. So for example, if we pull out the Kraken, you're going to see a bunch of really important bits right here. If there's for some reason a Kraken here, there shouldn't be. Don't do this. This is just mean to whoever has to work with this next. So yeah, fairly simple, fairly easy, fairly straightforward. That's how you would wire a battery in. Now, let's say that for some reason, I put my RSL here, right? And it just needs to go here. But I really don't want it to be, again, for some reason, this is not a realistic situation. I wouldn't recommend this. But let's say I want the battery to be above it rather than the RSL. So what you can do is you can either select the battery and hit raise and lower. We can bring it, we want to bring to front. Then it'll come over it. Or you can do the same thing. You can raise and lower, send to front, send to back. Pretty easy, pretty simple, not too hard. That is the main way of navigating fritzing. One other thing I will say is that we do our best to put our connectors in. More connectors are being made as they come, but here's a great example of the Mole X SL CAN connectors that we use. So let's say, for example, that we are connecting, we're connecting a Kraken with a breakout board, which is what this one has. You can see the difference between the two. It's just a visual difference. This one also has a couple more ports you can access. Let's move our RSL out of the way. Now let's say we are hooking up one end of this to a CAN coder, because that's a very realistic situation. What we're going to want to do is, let's just do the CAN wire for now. We're going to take the yellow or green wire. We're going to hook it in here. We're going to select the end. We're going to do this. This may look clunky. It certainly is not perfect, but we're doing things a little bit hastily here. I don't like this rotation. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. We are going to bring this here. Now here's something I wouldn't recommend you do, is actually crossing your wires, at least on the digital version. So actually, what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to make this yellow. I'm going to make this yellow. I'm going to hook these two up together. And I'm going to do wire color, yellow, wire color, yellow. Beautiful. Same thing. We're going to do green. I'm going to start by making the wire color green, and then start by making, we're going to do the same thing. Now, this one has to have a crossover, as you can see. We're going to make it a very nice crossover. It's going to run the line, and then it's going to cross over very beautifully, so that even when you back up, you can see what's going on. The other thing I will say is, if you move a component, I always recommend reviewing the wiring and making sure that it is as clean as possible. Here's a great example of what you shouldn't do. Instead, what you should do is you should pull the yellow wire out, just like this. You should line it up 90 degrees, and then you should do the same thing, but less exaggerated, to the green wire, and then pull it back, and now you have a beautiful wiring diagram. Obviously, this needs power, this needs some sort of resistance and starting, all that good stuff. But this is just for example. Let's say, for example, that obviously this has no connectors. We want to wire in a connector. Let's go to a very easy spot to add a connector in. Great. This goes to the end resistor, where it is the last thing on the chain. So what we want to do is you want to go ahead, select the wire, delete it, select the wire, delete it. And I'm going to go ahead and wire in a connector. This is the wrong connector type, but this is an easy one to wire in. It's also way oversized. That should get fixed. And now it's all wired up. 120 ohm resistor. As you can see, there are notes. You can do that by simply hitting add note, and then you can write your note here. So for example, I can do pigeon 2.0. If I really want someone to know that this is a pigeon, obviously I don't worry too much about that. Instead, what I worry about are things like back left. This is the back left swerve module. This resistor here isn't actually a 120 ohm resistor underneath it's a 220 ohm resistor. It's just the only one available in the parts they provide. So I just label it 120 ohm resistor. Pretty easy, pretty simple. Anyway, now that we have updated this, now that we've labeled this the pigeon and 120 ohm resistor, we can go ahead and hit file, save. Then the last step before you're able to be done for the day is you have to hit file. Otherwise, most people who work on the wiring of the robot won't actually be able to keep up with the changes. What you have to do is you have to do file, export as image, and you want a PNG. That'll take a second. Go to Documents, go to GitHub. As an editor's note, you can find GitHub resources on Nomathic wiring pattern language, how to download it, how to copy a repo. Essentially, all you have to do is hit clone and then paste in a link. It's super simple, I promise. Moving on. Go to Fritzing wiring diagram repositories. Go to this, and then you're going to want to select you just want to select it, and you want to hit yes to replacing it, and then it's going to replace it. And now that it's done replacing it, we can open up GitHub desktop, and you can see the two files that have been changed. So there's the PNG file and the .fzz file. You just go ahead and hit summarize this, something along the lines of added connectors to drivetrain, and then you will hit commit to main. And that's it. That's how you change the Fritzing wiring. Have a good day.